It had occurred to me that the scientists killed Annie. It just seemed so unjustifiably outlandish that I completely discounted it. For the record, I was not given a screener, but this episode was so zany and inexplicable that if I had been given a copy before the season aired, I would have assumed this was a fake second ending hastily shot to throw off people who would reveal the plot. I mean, there are so many unanswered...
Some questions just don't have answers.
But these aren't isolated details. It seems like every step of
You need to learn when to stop asking questions.
Oh, no, she didn't. Why would scientists need pollution to melt ice? I'm not going to dig into the details of ice hardness by temperature, since that is way too much thought for this show. Suffices to say, warming it up would destroy any kind of ice. Without this first ridiculous contrivance, which violates even a child's understanding of how ice works, none of the events of the show would even take place. But even if we concede that for the sake of story convenience, why didn't the scientists just synthesize small amounts of the pollution chemical and apply it directly to the area they were drilling? Pollution! Applied directly to the drill hole! If this is some kind of miraculous, de-icing chemical, why use the incredibly imprecise and inefficient method of the mine just throwing off random, uncontrolled emissions of the general mix of pollutants, rather than synthesizing specifically the de-icing agent that they were using and applying it directly to the area they were drilling in, and only that area? And why would the lab in the cave even be secret in the first place? None of the lab equipment is at all associated with the pollution. It seems like this long, narrow, ladder-only accessible tunnel would make transporting heavy ice cores and equipment up and down ridiculously difficult. What is the chain of reasoning that led Annie to implicate the lab? Ray says she found some notes left out by him. These notes are both non-specific enough that she couldn't just document them with her phone like is shown done by Rust-Oleum Clorox here, and obvious enough that Annie would know that they implied a connection to the area's pollution from an innocent glance after a fuck session. But she presumably was infiltrating Salal to look for this stuff, you might say. Okay then, why? It's just a research station. There would be no reasonable cause to suspect they have anything to do with the pollution. In fact, there would be every reason to believe they opposed it, except for the completely absurd reasoning invented by Lopez. Why would Annie be trying to find and document the lab equipment with her phone video? Wouldn't it be more important to find and document the source of the pollution? And why would Annie destroy the lab? This would jeopardize her infiltration and give the Tuttle organization a heads up that they had been discovered, even if she did manage to escape. The mine is purposefully increasing the pollution, so it would be very easy to stop and cover up. Documenting the wrongdoing for the press and regulatory authorities would pretty clearly be more important. Destroying the lab equipment would not destroy the research. It'd probably be in all of their email boxes. Even within the story, the scientists are able to recover from her damage within 2 years. Why would a half-dozen scientists kill Annie for 2 years' progress, completely jeopardizing the project, not to mention their own careers? And why would there only be one drill bit in the secret cave? The drill bits would likely be wearing out with heavy use. The ice being difficult to drill due to hardness is a major plot point. There would have been a box full of these drill bits somewhere to replace them as they wore out. How did SEAL Team Swiffer know the scientists did it? Did Sherlock Home Cleaner ascertain that this was the only object resembling an immersion blender blade in all of Alaska?
What I want out of each and every one of you is a hard target search of every gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, or doghouse.
For every fan blade, impeller blade, milkshake mixer, or immersion blender in North Alaska. How did the women know all the scientists did it? Even if we concede the murder weapon had to be the Salal drill bit, the murder could have been committed by any one of the scientists acting alone, or anyone that could have access to a drill bit or any way to make the drill bit. Ray very easily could have been completely innocent of her murder if he didn't inexplicably and unnecessarily take it upon himself to finish her off. I mean, why would he do that? While still cowardly, couldn't he just step aside and let the other scientists do it if he felt too intimidated? Why is Blair in on it, but not any indigenous men, including Annie's brother or the leader of the protests here in episode 3? Is the message that only women care about stillbirths and dead family members? One I'm surprised I haven't seen mentioned in YouTube commentaries is, why didn't Melina's phone capture anything from the Dust Mop Delta Force's attack? See, what had happened was, the SWAT team sweepers had taken a laptop with Adobe Editor on it to the murder just in case they were recorded, so they could download the recording off Melina's phone, edit it on their laptop to cut off their attack, re-upload the edited version onto the phone and delete the original, and then leave the phone in the exact same place it had been, but playing YouTube so that the battery runs out by the time Danvers finds it.
That one was just there, just like that. Dead battery.
Hey. Why do the women leave the spiral symbol on Lund? If specific to Annie, why does Rose know about it? If Rose is in on it, why not tell Navarro sooner to stop the investigation? Why not just tell Navarro exactly how Annie died or where to find the evidence the cleaning woman found? Why does the Gambino Grimes Syndicate wait to tell Danvers if they are so confident they can bully her or she will be unwilling to tell? They discover the secret chamber in the course of their legitimate cleaning duties. It doesn't implicate them. How did the scientists die in those positions after freezing to death? They wouldn't have had bleeding ears or bite wounds. Corneal burns, though, from the cold are real. Why does Otis Heiss have these same wounds? What did he do to earn the wrath of the likely supernatural explanation that we're supposed to buy? Why would Hank take the tongue? Leaving it with her body would still send a message. Issa Lopez says in an interview with Variety that we're supposed to believe one of the women took it after Hank left the tongue with Annie's body, but this directly contradicts what Bee says to Danvers.
Annie's tongue. Who left it at Salal?
That's not part of our story.
Why was Oliver Tagaq so invested in the facility or Lund? If we are to understand he was also killed by the women because he leaves his clothing folded and we get a spiral symbol, why? He literally was totally not present for Annie's death, and the women don't seem to know about the pollution connection. Even if this were the case, the detectives were notably confronted by a large group of men and hunting dogs when approaching Oliver's camp. If not, why would he commit suicide? Why would he himself leave the spiral symbol? Why doesn't Lund say anything about his killers to Danvers? How does he have the same hallucinations as Clark? I guess this is also supposed to be explained by the apparently real supernatural forces, but we're getting really close to it was all a dream level of unexplained deus ex machina. Why doesn't Annie's video match up to the flashback at all? Is this supposed to be her just suddenly dropping her phone at an extremely unfortunate angle to start smashing random lab equipment without doing a cursory 360 shot of the lab? Why is she screaming like her guts are being ripped out while she is smashing lab equipment? Wouldn't she probably try to quietly sabotage the equipment, or at least not intentionally scream and completely blow her cover? And in this shot, it seems like the lights are still on. How is that even possible? What is the time crunch forcing Navarro and Danvers to abandon Pete? I was willing to forgive this last week, but now this is further evidence of a near-complete disregard of thought in the writing. And why does Kayla do a sudden change of heart with no explanation after Pete was living with Danvers? Another underexplained event that I could forgive if it were not joined by so many other flaws. Why would anyone believe the Ray video, or it have any consequence other than making people look into the scientist's murders again? He's visibly beaten in the video and is clearly being prompted off-screen. This could easily be spun by the mind as the protester group getting blamed for the murders and having the entire leadership locked up on racketeering charges, especially given their ability to corrupt police officers. Why would Ray make a confession that would destroy the research when he felt it was the only thing providing meaning to Annie's death, especially after he was already suicidal? What was Navarro going to do, kill him twice? If he felt the project was doomed, why stay in hiding? He could have released the mine information and been alive to testify about it easily. He had a golden opportunity to be escorted back to town with either the supply truck driver or the investigating police if he is still fearful of whatever he thinks attacked the facility. And if we try to extract any kind of subtextual meaning from this ending, we have a couple of very ugly messages. If we connect the dots of a show where promiscuous women are shown to generate pretty uniformly negative consequences along with their rejection of Christianity, the childlessness of these characters, and the literal deaths of fetuses caused by medical science, maybe, just maybe, there may be some negative conservative messages about abortion policy in the show. I mean, what are we supposed to make of the fact that the climax involves a medical scientist literally stabbing a pregnant woman in her womb with a pointy, metallic medical science tool? This is in especially poor taste with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. One could also read into it a support for some of the most pernicious rumors spread by conservative political activists about the evils and dangers of stem cell research. And on an almost completely surface level, we see suicide glorified as a way to nobly escape the suffering of life and have a comfortable existence as a ghost looking over your loved ones from beyond the grave. How disgusting and irresponsible. No, the excuse that this is only one of multiple possible interpretations does not make that better. The fact this suicide glorification is a legitimate interpretation is enough. Nobody associated with this waste of time will escape being tarnished by this absolute shit stain on HBO's reputation. I and any intelligent audience member should feel embarrassed having put any thought into it. But beyond that, I feel embarrassed for Jodie Foster, whose long illustrious career has been marred by her association with this show. I feel bad for all the young, lesser-known actors whose careers will have this pretentious nonsense as their first recognizable credit. I feel bad for the Inupiat, who had their religious traditions appropriated and bastardized with even less reverence and plot involvement than Pizzolatto's Season 1 motifs.
Time is a flat circle.
I mean, the fact that none of the people who wanted to kill Annie had a personal relationship with Annie as either family members or romantic partners makes her story completely dissimilar from any versions of Sedna's myth. And rather than show the genuine power of feminine offering or withholding of fertility, as is the actual mythic source of Sedna's power, the women are shown deriving their power from a farcically comical imitation of male vengeful physical violence. But perhaps most, I feel bad for the missing Indigenous women who had an opportunity to have their real issues explored in a widely seen dramatization. Instead, these issues are obfuscated with this utterly contrived mockery of intelligence. And that is precisely what this is. A mockery of intelligence. Beyond depicting an entire group of medical researchers as secretly bloodthirsty, possibly misogynist and racist killers willing to snap for the absolute flimsiest reasons the moment an Indigenous woman touches their chemistry set, the show's complete disregard of providing reasonable explanations for the events in the show betrays a total lack of faith and intelligence of the audience. Or perhaps more accurately, an insulting convicted faith in the audience's total lack of intelligence. What a shameful waste. And frankly, the fact that HBO, which supposedly prides itself on making high-quality shows which don't insult the intelligence of the audience, created this farce, makes me doubt whether any televisual fiction is worth watching. It is hard to say whether this is worse than the finale of Game of Thrones. At least Game of Thrones could excuse itself as being rushed in the final season after the showrunners became burnt out or having too many loose plot threads left by the book author. Night Country was a standalone season of television done in one sprint of shooting and has no such excuses, despite being equally total in its disregard of any possibility the audience has a functional brain. I do not have enough scorn in my soul to heap upon Night Country to bury it at the depth it deserves. And so perhaps it is fitting that my disgust for this show will live on as an angry ghost. I want to ask you folks who have taken this wild and disappointing ride with me what you want to hear me talk about next. I'm considering a series talking about the Coen Brothers movies, but I also want to make a video about Linklater's Slacker and how it represents a glimpse into life before the internet, or possibly an analysis of American Psycho. Of course, I have wide-ranging interests in social science, history, mathematics, and philosophy, so I'd appreciate suggestions in those areas as well. This has been Shiva's Right Foot, and I'll talk to you next time.